Hey everyone, welcome to the Superdraft lineup building show. I'm Stevie TPFL, and I'm joined today, it's been a long time, by Andy Meansy. Meansy, what's up, my dude?
What's up, man? It's been a freaking long time. I've talked to you a little throughout baseball, just on Slack and stuff, and hang out with you at Nashville for a little bit. But other than that, man, I feel like we're strangers now.
I know, you're heading up all this premium stuff. I do a lot of the morning grind free stuff, so excited to be able to do these shows with you this year for football. We'll be doing them. It sounds like it to be every other week. I'll have you and Grant kind of flip flopping, and the site Superdraft. If you guys haven't checked them out, it's superdraft.io. Their app is really cool. It makes it really easy to build lineups over there with their app on the iOS. If you haven't checked them out, use promo code Grinders. That way you get that free $10 once you make your first deposit over there. Take advantage. Free money is free money. Let's just anytime you can get free money, you take advantage of it. But week one on Superdraft for me went really well. It went kind of how me and Grant kind of expected it to go last week when we did this show, Andy. People were trying to plug in those top-end options and not taking advantage of those multipliers. And yeah, some of those guys hit, but the multipliers really, really beat them up. And I think that's how I'm going to approach it again this week.
Yeah, I did not play on Superdraft week one, but I've been digging into it today since I've been doing this show with you. And I mean, I could see how just that little bit of a difference of their structure could kind of not scare people away, but just make them because like when we think of a salary cap game on other sites, it's an obvious way you have to build. You only get so much money, but this I think is so different and so new. There's not much content out for it. I do think there's a little bit of an edge, and from what you told me, it sounded like games were pretty soft. So it sounds like it's a good time to get in.
Yeah, games were pretty soft. Already got my first withdrawal over there, so it was a good week one. Playing on house money now, and when we look at it, I just pulling up the scoring before we get into the lineup building part of the show, just to kind of refresh everybody that was watching last week. Rushing touchdowns, passing touchdowns, or rushing touchdown, receiving touchdowns are 6 points. Passing touchdowns are 4. There are bonuses of 2 points for 100 yards or receiving or rushing and 300 yards passing. But the big thing here is it's a half-point PPR. So, you could really take advantage of those multipliers to take advantage of the only half a point. The scoring, it's really close to FanDuel scoring plus the bonuses. So I like it. It was just different. And, there's not really a lineup builder out there for it or anything like that. So, I made like 25 to 30 teams by hand, and I did a lot of it on the app. And, it was just easy to do. There was a lot of overlay, a ton of it. It overlaid a ton, and I expect it to overlay again this week.
Yeah, if you have that combined with the fact that there's going to be an innate edge just because of what I said, like a lack of content out there. Combine those two things, man. That sounds like a no-brainer to at least get a little bit of money over there and try it out, see if you like it. And who knows, maybe it's something you stick with throughout the season.
It overlaid half, over half. I think it ended up overlaying like 71 grand of the 125. So it was almost a double up with top end heavy prizes. So it was one of those things where I wish I built more teams over there because I just ran out of time.
That's a dream. That's a dream. A double up with a top heavy payout structure.
Double up with 20K up top. That's right up your alley, isn't it?
There we go. I can build cash game lineups there this week and be cool.
Yeah, there you go. You build cash lineups in the tournaments, and
yeah.
So we're gonna get started here. We're gonna do the same thing we did last week with Grant. We're gonna start with a cash type build. It's Wednesday. This is probably not the cash lineup that I'm going to end up on. We're still waiting on news on some running back injuries. So let's start with quarterback. Last week it was really easy for me. Jared Goff was 2x last week, and I just played him. You just took the 2x. I love Pat Mahomes, Watson, all those guys. But when we're looking at quarterback, we have to be taking these multipliers instead of taking those top-end guys, right?
Yeah, I mean, Mahomes is at 1, so that's that is going to be a little difficult to swallow there because you have, a lot of this too is going to depend on the AV status. I have no idea what's going to happen. It's even because Brady's at 1.45, I'd be interested there. maybe like Derek Carr against the Chiefs, I believe. So I mean, that he's at 1.95. That's kind of where I'd be looking.
Yeah, I like that one. I like Brady too. Pretty safe here. My Dolphins look terrible. Like there's no other way to say it. Like I feel like there's some good cash game options too, or tournament options. But Derek Carr against Kansas City, 1.95x. Like sign me up. I know when we look at Oakland from the first week, they tended to run the ball more than they passed. They were one of the only teams that were 50% plus run over pass in week one. I don't want to get into this whole overthinking week one type thing. Like, we know that Kansas City defense is not the best, and we know that Kansas City is going to run a ton of plays, and they play at a pretty fast pace. So I'm with you. I think Derek Carr, first look, is in my cash lineup right now.
Yeah, that's what I'd be doing for sure. Looking at some of these other multipliers, like Trubisky is at 1.75. I'd be a little interested in him there. In tournaments, they passed a lot in week one. Obviously, that game was a slugfest, but I think if we can expect that type of run pass distribution from them, he'd be fine. And you know, he can always get you there with his legs. But yeah, if I'm building a cash game lineup right now, Wednesday at almost 4 Eastern, I'm probably putting in Derek Carr.
Yeah, you got to look at it this way too. If Carr goes out and puts up 15, he's almost scoring 30. Where if Mahomes goes out and puts up 20 to 25, which he could put up more than that. I'm not saying that he can. I'm not saying Carr's only going to put up 15, but getting that multiplier, I think that you have to take advantage of it. And like, I like the spot for Russell Wilson, 1.45. I like the spot for Lamar Jackson, but I just don't like the multiplier, 1.2. You know, those two teams played really fast. Like Arizona played at an extremely fast pace on Sunday, and I think that we're not going to see them back that down too much. We're going to see Arizona play at a fast pace. So opposing quarterbacks' offenses are going to be appealing against Arizona all year.
Yeah, and I want to ask you kind of just a general question, since you've had a week of experience playing on this. How can you get a feel for how they do these multipliers? It's kind of like their pricing algorithm, I guess, from other sites, but like how are they coming up with these? Do you see any rhyme or reason to what they're doing?
I think from what I've seen so far, especially last week and this week, is your studs are all going to be close to that 1x. Like they're making you make the decision on, do I want to play a Patrick Mahomes or do I want to play a guy that's going to get a multiplier? And, you know, Watson's up there as well. He wasn't on the main slate last week, so it was tough to really judge. But, like, even if we go over to running back, like Zeke Elliott, Barkley, all those guys are right at that 1 to 1.1, 1.2. Like, from what I've seen so far, the guys that are getting the higher multipliers are not the best players in the world, or in tough matchups. Like Aaron Rodgers, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, 1.65 because he's facing Minnesota. Like that's actually kind of appealing for tournaments just because he's Aaron Rodgers and he's the GOAT.
Yep, I agree with that. As we get in, I don't know when we'll get into running back, but we'll see one that's a kind of we both agreed before the show, kind of a missed multiplier, I guess, if we can coin that phrase. But yeah, like the bonus thing too, since this kind of since that factors that in, if AB is playing, I think Brady is probably my favorite tournament play on the slate because he's kind of right in that middle ground, almost at 1.5 multiplier. I think he's my favorite on the slate because I think he'll get that bonus easily against the Dolphins.
Yeah, we'll build a couple tournament teams here in a few minutes. But let's move on over to running back, and you kind of pointed this guy out to me, so I'll let you just roll into the guy that you feel like is kind of underpriced here.
Yeah, I mean Damian Williams is at a 2 multiplier, and I mean say what you want about Shady, about what they're going to do with him, but it's one of the best running backs on their team in the highest scoring offense in the league probably. So I think that's just an error. I mean I keep wanting to say mispriced, man. I don't know what to say. I don't know if that's what I should say.
We'll just say mispriced. Yeah.
He's mispriced. I think he's probably the first guy I would put into a cash game lineup at any position.
Yeah, like for sure. That's obviously one of the top guys. At two, he was 2x, right?
Yeah, he's 2x. Yep.
Like 2x running back. Sign me up. Like there's nothing stopping me from that one, right?
No way. He's one. I'm sorry. He's not 2x. He's 1.4. I mislooked. I looked at a wrong day. I was looking at Damian Harris. My bad.
Okay, I was gonna say, I was like, I just pulled him up and he's 1.4. So let's rethink that now, Andy.
Cut it and let's go back and edit this out, Devin. Yeah. So still at 1.4, I'm not going to call him a cash game lock, but I still like him. I mean, he's a little higher than those other guys that you're mentioning, like the Zekes, the Saquons. But yeah, I was looking at it earlier. I was looking at what Damian was. I looked at Damian Harris, not Damian Williams. Error on my part. My bad.
So one of the things that I noticed in week 1 on Superdraft when I was looking at the top teams, I always like to analyze new sites and like what won. And a 3-person stack with the massive multipliers ended up winning. Like Hawkinson was in the lineup and he had a 2x and obviously he had a big game. But like Eckler, who had a 1.75, he was 29% owned, and Mark Ingram was 1.9, who was 28% owned. Like they were obviously there. The guy that stands out to me at running back this week, cash games and tournaments, kind of pairs with my quarterback in this Kansas City game. Jacobs, 1.7. We just got done talking about how Oakland ran the ball. He looks like the real deal, Andy, and this 1.7 seems very, very appealing.
Yeah, man, he touched the ball a ton, played a bunch of snaps. Obviously, I mean, I think he's kind of going to put himself into that bell cow category. And yeah, man, I don't think I have much disagreement with you there, considering his multipliers is approaching 2. I think I will say I'll say about him what I was saying about Damian Williams. I think he's the guy to start lineups with.
Yeah, and like you got to remember, it's a half-point PPR. So like, if all I need Jacobs to do is find the paint, and if I'm expecting the Raiders to score 3+ touchdowns here against Kansas City, which it's kind of what I'm projecting, I like the idea of 3+ touchdowns here for Oakland. I'm getting 1.95, 1.7 on Jacobs, and trust me, we're going to talk about Tyrell Williams as well, because all the Oakland guys on this site are, I wouldn't say they're underpriced. If we're going to use that term, they're underpriced. So looking at like an RB2, I think in cash games, we look for somebody that's really strong, kind of in this mid tier. What's your thoughts here on like a Breida, depending on that injury? Johnson, Mack, what do you like here in the mid tier?
I like David Johnson at 1.65. I like James Conner at 1.45. Those would be guys I'd be interested in. Kerryon Johnson at 1.5. Aaron Jones at 1.5. I think those guys would all be in the conversation. If I'm putting in, what do we have? We have 2 running backs and a flex. So we're at past Jacobs. If I'm putting in this cash game line today, I'd probably go Conner.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. I think it's really close between Conner and Mack, but I'm taking the workload of Conner. Just knowing, like, I think you can make an argument too. Like, if you're not playing Brady, I think you can make an argument for Michelle. Like, he's 1.4. Miami's terrible. I think New England tries to potentially run the ball a little bit more this game against Miami. I don't know. Like, that New England team, they didn't have any trouble against Pittsburgh, so they could go out here and put up 40 against the Dolphins easily.
I'll be curious to see how they treat this game because, in years past, you've seen them kind of go in FU mode and run up the score, and they don't really care. You've seen other years where they just want to get out with wins. They just want to get to the playoffs as healthy as possible. So we'll see, like, if they really stomp them, you could see a second half where you see a ton of Michelle. So I agree with that. I think, and even so, like they could move the ball through the air a bunch, and he could still score in the first half, just getting stuff at the goal line. So I think he's perfectly fine. I play him in cash games at his 1.4 multiplier for sure.
So for the sake of this one, do we go Conner or do we go Michelle?
Let's go Conner.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning Connor a little bit too. Depending, like you said though, like obviously it depends on AB a little bit too, because if AB doesn't play and all this stuff comes down or whatever, then I think Michelle's even a little bit more interesting there on a half point PPR site. So looking at wide receiver now, obviously Hopkins all the way at the top, Thomas all the way at the top, AB at the top. Is there anybody at the top worth looking at, or are we just going to continue to take these multipliers and start to look in like 1.4 plus?
Maybe Juju, maybe Devontae Adams. Those guys are kind of up at the top, like they're 1.2, 1.25 ish. I would have a little interest in those guys. Thomas would probably be my other one. Yeah, I mean, I have interest in those guys, but I would probably still look at some multipliers. I have no idea what to expect out of AB if he plays. Who knows if he gets a full complement of snaps if he even plays. I would love Edelman if he doesn't play. So there's still a lot of uncertainty with that situation in general. But to answer your question, I guess I would have interest in Juju at the top.
Yeah, I think Juju would be the guy too at 1.2.
What do we know about his injury situation? What does he have, a toe?
Yeah, they said that it doesn't sound like it's serious. I think he plays. I don't think it's anything like crazy. I think that they were getting stopped by 30 points. Yeah. So I think Juju is a guy that's like at the top of my list for like a bounce back week. Sammy Watkins got kind of a increase here. He was, I think, like 1.9. 1.7 in that range last week, and he's all the way up to 1.25. Just kind of scrolling down here. Kenny Galladay is interesting, depending on what happens with the situation for the Chargers cornerback injury, information. So that would be what I'd be looking at if a guy like John Brown wasn't it John Brown? Was it John Brown that was it Buffalo Chargers? Why can't I think of that now?
What are you talking about? An injury or what?
Oh no, Crowder. No.
What are you?
The Chargers? Oh no, Colts. T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah. Chargers played the Colts.
Yeah, so you'll have to see like the injury news as far as the Chargers secondary goes for like a Kenny Galladay play here at 1.3. Edelman's a little interesting even at half point PPR if AB doesn't play at 1.3. Is there anybody like once we get down to like 1.5 plus that we'd be looking at here for cash games?
1.5 plus, maybe like Marvin Jones. Again, I'll go back to the AB. We'll follow the news on him because he's 1.65. I'd have a lot of interest there if he is going to play somewhat close to a full complement of snaps because I got to imagine they'd try to get him integrated quickly. So those guys would be fine. Yeah, that's about it. I don't love a lot as you work your way up the multiplier scale. I have a question for you. I know this is a cash game, Bill, but I just have a general question for you about this for tournaments. Like a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, who's at 1, like he could. I mean, and he's going against Jacksonville. Like if you're making a bunch of tournament lineups here, do you even include him? Like because. Like, what are the chances, like, he's on a winning tournament lineup at 1? Like, he'd have to just go absolutely bonkers and no one else, like, do much.
So the winning team from last week, the highest multiplier was 1.4, or lowest multiplier was 1.4. Yeah. And it was Dalvin Cook, who we know had a monster game. Like, the winning team last week was Stafford, who was 2X. Eckler was 1.75. Cook was 1.4. Marvin Jones was 1.65. Djax was 1.95. Boykin was 2X. Hawkinson was 2X, and Mark Ingram was 1.9.
I think that's just a huge edge because people are going to make these lineups and be like, I don't have any like stud or any high end running back or superstar. They're just going to see it and they're like, I'm going to play someone else because they can. You can play literally anyone you want. I think that's a huge edge in this format.
Yeah, it's not a salary cap either. So, people are going to plug in those top-end guys just because, hey, I can play Hopkins and Michael Thomas and Antonio Brown all on the same team. Yeah, you can do that. And, those guys can score 30. But, like, all I need is a guy that's 1.7 to score 20. And, I'm crushing your 1X guys.
Exactly.
So,
That's just a huge edge, man. I think that's that makes this format really interesting.
So the guy that stands out to me, I know it's a tough matchup. Don't get me wrong, but the guy that stands out to me is Larry Fitzgerald, 1.65. He just continues to say, "Hey, I'm not retiring." Like he just continues to be the absolute beast that we know of. And like I'm not worried about Arizona. Even in this matchup against Baltimore, they're going to go out and they're going to play super fast. And when we're looking at it, they played 88 plays last week. Like 88 plays, like snaps. Like I know that game went into overtime and like obviously you have to factor in that, but they passed 64 times and they used 4 wide receiver sets. Fitz played 61 of 64 snaps in week 1. Like he's 1.65. If he gets 7+ targets here, we know he's going to catch, if not 5 or 6 of those. Like he just seems like a really high floor play. No Jimmy Smith for Baltimore. He got hurt last week. Like this seems like a really good spot to trust Fitz.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I know I saw the coach was saying that, yeah, well, we were in that formation a lot because we were behind. And I think this team wants to throw anyways. And if they're behind again for whatever reason, guess what? They're going to throw again. So I think this is a prime spot to attack Fitz and some other pass catchers in that receiving corp. So yeah, I'm on board with you. What'd you say Fitz was at his multiplier? 1.65?
1.65, yeah.
That's
even in a tough matchup, I think I'd consider playing him in cash. I'm gonna throw him in there. I just love the multiplier game. 15 points at that multiplier, Andy. We're looking at 24, 25 points. Like that's fine with me. Especially at wide receiver.
Did we talk about the Gazelle yet? I know you referenced him when we were talking running back.
No, we haven't talked about him yet. We can. That's where I was going next. Like, we know where this is going with Oakland, and like, I don't even hate stacking here in cash. Like,
the multipliers are awesome, man. And what's Waller's got a pretty nice one too, right?
Yeah, he has a nice one too. Like, I don't know if it's because they played later in the week, but there's a good chance I stack Oakland in cash.
Oh my God, Waller's got a 2. Oh my God.
Yep.
I would play 4 of them in cash.
Yeah, and I have no issues with that going up against Kansas City. Like, obviously, I think like Derek Carr would be the guy that like I could potentially move off of to make it only a 3. But like,
I'm just gonna play him if I'm playing the other guys.
Yeah, like if I'm playing 3 other guys, like
Stevie, this week 2 is built for me to play on Superdraft because if it's gonna overlay, I could play a cash game lineup in a tournament, but my cash game lineup is going to be stacked with Raiders. So I might as well just move all my action over there this week.
There you go. Like you're loading up. All right, so we're gonna put Williams in here. We need one more wide receiver. I don't hate the idea of Juju, but we have Connor in there. I don't love both of them because we're not getting 1.7x type multipliers on those guys. I think that we could potentially look at like one of these 1.4 guys because I feel like we have some safer options in there.
Like an Amari, maybe?
Yeah, Cooper is kind of who I was thinking, or Lockett. One of those 2 guys. I think that we could potentially see Seattle throw a little bit more in this game, but
I kind of lean Amari just strictly because I know we're working on small samples with week 1, but the Dallas offense obviously looked like a different animal. Lockett, yeah, that he was doubled a lot, but that still worries me a little bit that he didn't see as many targets. So I kind of lean Amari on that.
Yeah, when we're looking at Cooper, I think that he's a solid play. He had 9 targets, 6 catches, over 100 yards. Like you take that and you're at 13, you get the multiplier, you're right at 20. I'm good with 20 points in cash. Like if I get 20 from everybody with these multipliers, I feel a little bit better. All right, let's swing on over to tight end. We've kind of already let the cat out of the bag here as far as like who you're probably looking at for cash games over on this site. But there are some options. Like if you don't want to go that route, like Jared Cook at 1.6 seems like a really strong play. That offense we know is going to throw the ball a lot. I faded Kelsey last week on Superdraft, and I will probably likely fade him and Kittle again. Kittle makes me a little bit more nervous than Kelsey does.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate Kelsey here just because of the Tyreek situation and because it is more of a touchdown dependent scoring system. So I could see getting away with that, but I still it's almost like the multipliers here kind of give you a little bit of a safety net. They can kind of like it's kind of just bail you out a little bit. So yeah, I mean, if I'm going to build a tournament lineup, I probably would not put. If I'm like building one tournament lineup, I probably would not put Kelsey in it. I would do a Waller. I would do a Vernon Davis probably. That's those two would be who I'd be looking at. But yeah, those are scary fades at tight end, man.
Yeah, like honestly, like I think you can play tight end would be a position that if I'm going to play a 1x guy, it'd probably be tight end.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say I'm going to fade them, but I will be very underweight on Kelsey and Kittle. Ingram is really interesting too. This guy's coming off of a 14 target game. We know that they don't really have a ton. We don't know the status of Shepard. Like Ingram could be another guy that like sees double digit targets in back-to-back weeks as a tight end. And I'm getting him at 1.3 compared to getting Kelsey at 1.0.
Yeah, I would be fine with him even if Shepard plays. They obviously want to get him involved, kind of be a focal point of their offense. So he would be someone in that kind of mid tier. I'd be fine with. Trying to see. I don't love. Yeah, how many do you have the anything pulled up on targets from last week? How many targets did Cook see? Do you have that in front of you?
Yeah.
I watched most of that game, and his usage was a little lower than I thought it'd be.
He had 3 targets.
Yeah. He's still at 1.6. That helps you out a little bit. And I do think that I would think going forward, he's kind of more in more of the 5 to 6 range. So I think that might be a good opportunity to kind of buy low on him on this site.
I think that's the biggest thing with week 2. And, we're going to record the morning grind later tonight for football, and I'm going to talk about it. But, I'll go ahead and give you guys a preview. Like week 2 for me is taking advantage of the guys that kind of busted in week 1 that people are going to be off of, because we played them in week 1 for reasons. And the people that we played that kind of busted, I feel like you just go right back to the well on some of these spots. And Jared Cook would be one of those guys. Like they had some schemes for Hill, like the backup quarterback, and like Taysom Hill's a beast. Don't get me wrong, but like Jared Cook is just a better athlete when it comes to catching football. So I think that they got a little cute, and I think we see a little bit more Jared Cook action this week.
Taysom Hill tilt Twitter is one of my low key favorite Twitters. Like, people just hate him.
Well, put him as a wide receiver, and we let us play him or something, and I think we tilt less, right?
Yeah,
That'd
I
be
agree.
The game that Breeze got hurt.
Yeah,
he'd come in and throw. Just kind of looking at this, looking at targets and looking at opportunities and stuff. I was looking to see, like, obviously, like, Waller he's your guy in cash. I don't hate the all Oakland build, to be honest. Like,
why would you? It's awesome.
Like, you're getting a matchup with Kansas City, and it's just like, oh man, like it's just insane. So, and
maybe they have little chance to keep it closer if with Tyreek out, So man, it's a appealing build on Superdraft.
Yeah, we'll get into some tournament potential tight ends here in a little while, but there is one guy that I wanted to bring up. It was Tyler Eifert. He's coming off of a game where we kind of knew what was going to happen with him. They drafted a blocking tight end. They were going to use him more in the passing game, and he's coming off of a 6-target game. I know Cincinnati threw a lot in that game, but I think that San Francisco Cincy game has some sneaky potential this week.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We might as well, while we're on tight end real quick, we might as well talk about the Hunter Henry thing and go and look and see what because I don't know if they're going to pick up anybody off the street or anything, but what do we got here with their backup situation? Virgil Green is what I'm seeing.
Yeah, Virgil Green would be the backup.
And what's he at over here? He's at
he's 2x, yeah.
2x, yeah. So I don't know that he's never really been a huge part of any pass attack on any team he's been, for at least just off the top of my head. So I don't know. You have any interest in him if he's going to be their number 1 tight end?
I think I have more interest in the wide receivers than I do in Green, but it's a 2x tight end. If he finds the end zone, you're already at 12 points with no catches and no yards. So it's 2x. Like these multipliers, man. Like How many people are really going to play Green on a non-salary cap site is the other question you have to ask yourself. Yeah, obviously he'll be used on salary cap sites because he's probably min-salary across the industry and he's facing Detroit. But, Green is a guy like nobody's going to play here. So I'm interested for sure.
What about Mike Williams then at 1.6 at wide receiver?
Yeah, like Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, both those guys.
Yeah, I'd like Mike Williams in tournaments. Obviously, kind of more of a big play, touchdown dependent type of guy. But that's kind of what the scoring system reflects here. You want a little more touchdown equity there. So I wouldn't mind some Mike Williams at 1.6.
Yeah, if Williams is good to go, injury wise, like he'd be a guy that I'd be looking at in all formats over there at 1.6 with them being so touchdown dependent. And Henry's coming off of a game. I think he had 6 targets. So like, it's not like they weren't trying to use Hunter Henry. It's just, or he had 5 targets. But all right, flex position for cash. We've talked about a lot of plays here. I'm going to leave flex open because we kind of already went through everything. Running back, I would look towards a running back for the flex just because of this scoring format. Let's get into a tournament build. We've used half the show to kind of build a cash team here. Let's get into a tournament build. Is there a game just off the top of your head that's like standing out to you that you would potentially want to stack here that we could look at building? You muted your mic, Andy, you rookie.
Am I not allowed to say Chiefs Oakland?
Yeah, let's not, because we spent a lot of time. Like that would be the easy game stack, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, is it fishy to say Arizona Baltimore?
No. I mean, I love the pace. The pace projected for that game is very like that game opened at like 41.5 and it's up to 46. Like it's being bet like massively to the over already.
Yeah, I for whatever reason the big spread doesn't scare me because like I said, if it does play out the way that spread is saying, and Arizona's down a score or two most of the game, they're still gonna be chucking seeds, man. So even if that means you play like Lamar and you play a bunch of and you play Fitz, you play David Johnson and go that route, I would like to stack that game up a little bit. It's gonna gets a little weird though, just because with Lamar you don't know who to pair him with.
Yeah, you probably would pair him with Andrews.
Yeah.
I think 1.5. All right, let's build a little Arizona-Baltimore game stack here.
I believe they call the Lamar Jackson Mark Andrews stack the head chopper now. Is that what they call it now?
Hey, listen, I'm good with that. Like, he had the balls to do what I didn't, so good for him.
Yeah.
I played a lot of Lamar Jackson naked, and that did not work out. So, all right, let's build an Arizona-Baltimore game stack. We want to have Murray or Jackson, considering the multipliers. Like Jackson's 1.2 and Murray's 1.65.
That's a tough one, man. I kind of say Murray, but I don't know.
The multiplier. Like,
yeah. I almost kind of want to build out who we want at our skill positions and then come back to it maybe.
Let's do that. Yeah. Running back, like David Johnson's 1.65. We completely overlooked that when we were, building cash, but like he would be the instant, like if I'm building a game stack for this game, I'm taking advantage of that multiplier.
For sure. And I mean, Ingram's kind of cool there too. He's at 1.4. I think that's an easy double up right there, running back spots.
Yeah. Like if we get that, 4, 5, 6 touchdowns from this game, now we're starting to, knock in those. So I like Fitz. I like Kirk too. Like, Kurt is a guy that 1.85. Like, yeah, like we're getting really good. Like, this is one of the things. Like, if you're willing to play wide receivers or running backs in tougher matchups, you're going to get the multipliers, which I love.
What are the rules for teams here? Like how many players you have to have from a certain team?
I do not know that question. Good question.
We might find out here.
Good question. Don't know. So let's take Fitz and Kirk. Like with the multipliers, if we're just getting all the touchdowns, and then we talk about potentially playing Andrews at tight end. I don't have any interest in the Arizona tight ends. They didn't use the tight end. Like, I'm not worried about not having any interest in them. So I would play Andrews with this stack. And I honestly, when you're building this team, I would probably play Murray.
Yep.
Because I've already put in 3 of his skill guys. Like, You're just hoping that Jackson doesn't get a rushing touchdown at that point.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know, that multiplier just stands out to me, the 1.65, as much as he's going to throw. I like Murray as we build this out.
All right. Well, leaves you a wide receiver and a flex. If you're looking at a build like that, there's another team that I wanted to talk about, and it's not because I'm a homer. Let's talk Miami Dolphins. The reason that I want to talk Miami Dolphins here is we know Fitzpatrick has those games every once in a while, Andy, and we know New England, their defense looked really strong against Pittsburgh. They're going onto the road here. They're playing a Miami Dolphins team that's terrible. They've shipped off all their assets. They're terrible. Like, don't get me wrong, but when we look at this as a whole, I'm looking at the multipliers. Like, I'm getting 1.8 for Fitzpatrick. I'm not worried about the whole running back situation. I think all those guys are terrible. But the guy that's standing out to me is Devontae Parker. He's a 2X. Like, I can make a little stack here. We joked last week. Me and Grant jokingly made a Philadelphia-Washington game stack on this show last week. And if I would have played that lineup, it would have crushed. So no joking here. Like, Devontae Parker with a Fitzpatrick getting 1.8 plus a 2X for Devontae Parker. Like, it's a mini little stack here that I kind of like just because of the multipliers.
Yeah, and if you try to predict how that game's going to go, obviously the chalky way would be that, they get blown out. But these guys need reps, man. They're not like, Parker's still somewhat young. Like, I think obviously there's going to be a certain point if that game does blow out that they're going to be taken out. But garbage time points still count for fantasy points. Last I checked, so I think I'm kind of on board with you there. Who else? I'm looking at some other pass catchers here. Parker, like what's Wilson at? He's at 1.55. That's pretty decent. I mean, he's questionable though, so I think I'm kind of on board with you there.
Yeah, and like even if you want to go to like a Williams, he's 1.75. The tight end situation, they're all 2X. Like there's ways that if you're building, and like you could build this as a New England stack with like a Brady, and just run it back with the wide receiver and tight end for Miami, hoping that they get up so much in that game. It doesn't matter. Like if you don't trust Fitz to play the whole game, which I think is the biggest concern with Fitz, then you run it back. You just run back your New England stack with, some of these guys, like, and they make a ton of sense just because of the multipliers. I find the paint at all on any of these guys. And, Devontae Parker air yards in the first week were phenomenal.
I don't know what made me think of this. I meant to say this off the top, but another added benefit of this site, in my opinion, no defense. Love it.
No defense, no kicker. Like, just
love it.
All the offense.
Yes.
All the offense, Andy. All right. I just wanted to get my Miami love stack out there. Let's build another tournament team here. Where do you want to start here with this other tournament team? Like, just, first look, I think personally, one of the ones that kind of stand out to me here is Garoppolo, but the only issue with him that you run into is here you don't really want to play Kittle because of the multiplier, but Garoppolo is 1.65 here against Cincinnati.
Yeah, I'd be fine to build that one out if you want. I kind of would like to – I'd be interested to build out a Seattle-Pittsburgh one just because we talked about Juju and Connor a little bit. We talked about Lockett, so –
that's more fun. We'll do quarterback last again. Carson's 1.4 and Connor is 1.45. Like, obviously you could play both of those guys. I have no issues playing both of those guys.
I would put those both in if we're game stacking this. Do a Juju and a Lockett, maybe like a Vance McDonald at tight end, and I think that makes maybe go Ben. What's Ben's 1.4 and Russ is 1.45. So yeah, what would you be looking at besides Lockett as a Seattle pass catcher?
Metcalf probably.
Yeah.
I want touchdowns, right? Like,
yeah.
So Metcalf would be a guy that's, really interesting here. He's not a guy that I think is going to be getting 15 targets a game, but I think he's going to get some red zone looks here.
How far out would you go with this if you were game stacking this on Superdraft?
Because of the multipliers on like Juju, I think if I was game stacking this, I'd lean more towards leaving Juju off a stack and hoping that McDonald gets the touchdowns, because like Vance McDonald's 2X. So I would leave off of Connor or Juju if I was building this stack. I think taking advantage of the multipliers, probably taking Russ just because I can pair him more here. I think, and they're really close. So I think that's how I'd be building this team more as a game stack on the Seattle side, hoping that this Pittsburgh defense really is just not that good.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Love the Vance at 2. At the 2 multiplier. I love pairing both those running backs. I don't love it as much as the Oakland KC stack, though.
No, that Oakland KC stack is going to be pretty popular, I would think. Maybe not. Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah.
When you can just play all those studs. Like last week, we let chat tell us a game to stack, and that's where the Philly the Philly Washington game stack. So I'm gonna throw it to chat. I'm gonna let you guys pick a game that we're gonna game stack here, and I'm just gonna I was kind of interested, like going through maybe one of these older teams. I was trying to find like ownership on some of these guys, like some of the top end running backs. So Zeke last week at 1x, Andy, was only 2.4% owned.
Okay.
So like Tyreek Hill was 1.25 and he was 8% owned. So I think people caught on pretty good. Kelsey was 11% owned at 1.1x. Just kind of scrolling through some teams here. Thielen was pretty chalky, 42% owned at 1.5x.
Yeah, that's to be expected, I guess, at that multiplier. What were some? You said some other obvious ones, like Ingram was 1.9. Well,
I'm trying to find an Ingram team. I was curious with that. Ertz was the chalk tight end over there last week. He was 1.5x. He was like 36% owned. Fournette was really popular over there. He was 34% owned. He was 1.45x. All right, we're getting a lot of mixed games here.
But whatever one is duplicate is the one we're going with.
First one that duplicates?
Yeah.
All right.
I do not want to do Titans Colts. I'll say that much.
You just open it up like they're gonna.
Yeah, right. There we go, Devin. We got a troll in the chat. His name's RG Producer.
Yeah, like we could always hit this leave meeting button and like really mess them up here. For S's and G's while we wait, let's build that San Francisco Cincy stack just because there's a lot of multipliers in that game in general. And it's kind of interesting because if you get one of those Washington-type Philly games from week 1, not saying it's going to happen every week, but every one of those Washington guys last week were like 1.75 plus. So actually, this is the game that we got 2, or it's the same person, but it is a team that we have 2. But like looking at this, Andy, like Garoppolo and Dalton, 1.65 and 1.8. Like we're getting high multipliers from our quarterbacks. If we go over to running back, Mixon's very questionable. And if he sits, like Giovanni Bernard becomes your cash game play over there on Superdraft because he's 2x. Breida's 1.5. Like I'm already liking this stack for a game stack because of the multipliers.
Yeah, if you keep going, at least to the Cincinnati guys, Ross is at 1.75. Boys at 1.45. Those guys just like swallowed up targets last week. They're both double-digit targets, I believe. So, yeah, man, you're kind of selling me on this.
This is definitely going to be a stack that I build. Like 100% will have a stack from this game. And like if I'm doing it, I'm probably not playing Kittle. I'm probably playing Eifert and hoping Eifert scores at 1.85. But I don't hate even playing Kittle in this stack.
Yeah, I would probably be okay with it because if you think people are catching on to the multiplier thing, maybe he doesn't come with a ton of ownership. And man, like when you look at the targets from the Niners guys from last week, it's scary past Kittle. Like they're just really spread out. So maybe I don't know. Maybe with Coleman out a little bit, I mean that'll spread it out, or condense it a little more. But the San Francisco side of that scares me a little bit to the point where if I am game stacking, I'd probably go Kittle.
Yeah, like Devo is kind of interesting. He played a ton of snaps in week 1. Like Pettis, like where was Pettis? I think a lot of people were asking that, but like Goodwin, these guys are. I like this game stack. Goodwin's 2x. Like this is a good job, chat. Like this is a good one. Like
yeah, this is the one you like throw like we were talking about earlier. You throw week one out the window and you just don't really pay attention to the small sample of that, and you just I don't know, bet on talent, bet on previous year's usage, preseason usage, things like that. Just kind of guess what's going to happen going forward, and don't worry too much about week one, especially on this San Francisco side. So like go with the good one, go with Debo, because their multipliers are just so good for this format. So
I will say I probably wouldn't play Pettis. He played 2 snaps. Like,
yeah, I would not play Pettis.
Like I don't get it. I think Pettis proved himself last year, but if Pettis is the highest multiplier, like or the lowest multiplier, so it's fine with me. Give me Debo and give me Goodwin at the high multipliers. So, man, this is a good one, Andy. I like this one. This is good job, chat.
Hey, if you want to get any sort of consolation on Pettis, he played 2 snaps. We have 1 target. So if that ratio keeps up,
oh, buddy, if he gets 4 snaps, we're getting up to 2 targets now. Oh man. So yeah, I will say, like last week, I went individually each game hand by. Oh, look at this, Andy. Hold on, my notebook's right here. I went every game last week. Let me find it, and I highlighted the multipliers that I liked for each game for each player that were kind of standing out. So if you put in the work here, I feel like this site does have an edge.
Yeah, I did, and you kind of just somewhat glossed over it when we were talking about this game stack. But Geo is 2x, man. If no Mixon, yeah, lock it in all formats.
Yeah, like he would instantly be that cash game play. Yeah. Like Breida is interesting in cash too, just because like since he doesn't have a great defense and he's 1.5, even Mozart is a guy. He's 2x, so like he's an interesting tournament play because they're going to use him if with Coleman out.
Yep. Yeah, man, this is a good one. I like this one a lot.
The other game last night when I was like going through, like the Houston side doesn't have any multipliers, but the Jacksonville side against Houston, if you want a tournament flyer, like a lot of these guys have massive multipliers here. So that was one of the ones.
What's this Rams Saints one real quick? Like Malcolm Brown's at 2x.
All right.
That's a decent one.
Oh yeah, that's a nice 4:00 game too. So let's, we'll start with quarterback. Jared Goff was 2x last week. It was phenomenal. Like he was your cash game play. You didn't even think twice about it. Like you played him or Stafford because they're both 2x. So glad that he's not 2x this week, but I'd probably be looking more at the skill positions here.
Be careful if you're stacking this when you just click the game, because M. Thomas is sticking up there at the top at 2x, and he is for the Rams. He is not the M. Thomas you're thinking of.
But yeah, I like the Malcolm Brown call, 2x. The touchdown equity's there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very curious to see what goes on with that going forward. Like, I watched Red Zone on Sunday. I didn't see if it was game situation or why he kept getting in for all those close carries. Did you see that one?
No. So like as football was going, NASCAR content had to be done. So like,
I saw you randomly tweeting NASCAR stuff during NFL Sunday, so I figured you were on site.
Yeah. So no, I wasn't actually on site. I was home, but they did qualifying like the same day as the race. So like all the content, like it was pretty messed up last week. So I'm excited this week to have a Sunday night race so I can watch some football on Sunday.
Sure.
So, looking at this game too, when you're looking at like the wide receivers, like obviously, you have your top end guys, but like Teddy Ginn played a role in that offense and he's 1.75. Like that seems really nice too.
It was weird to see him catching a bunch of balls close to the line of scrimmage. I was not used to seeing that with him. But I mean, that helps his fantasy value a little bit because obviously they're still going to want to take shots downfield with him. Yeah, 1.75 is good. And I mean, the 3 main Rams guys are 1.3. Not great, but I mean, it's if you catch the guy who has 120 yards and 2 touchdowns, you're going to be fine there. So that's kind of an interesting one to stack that game and don't play Mike Thomas. I would kind of do that. Might be on board.
Yeah, I would do it just because if Ginn finds the end zone, like at 1.75, or Smith, we talked about the tight end situation. So yeah.
Yeah, the tight ends on this one is kind of gross. I don't know. What do we
I
got
don't
here?
hate Jared Cook, man.
Yeah, we talked about him. Yeah, you're right. That's what I would do. Yeah, yep, that's the one.
Give me some Jared Cook at 1.6. Like I'll play the week 1 didn't happen game with Jared Cook and just
there you go
on him. So Andy, we're done. It's fun. Like these lineup build shows are fun. Like, obviously we spent a lot of time going position by position for a cash game build, but game stacks are interesting here, especially if we're looking back at week 1 and looking at the team that took down the tournament. It wasn't really a game stack per se, but it was definitely a pretty stacked up lineup with Detroit. So taking advantage of the multipliers was what was successful in week 1, and I'm going right back to the well. I'm going to be taking advantage of the multipliers here, and if this becomes one of those like potential double ups with 20K up or 20K up top, right? You have to be interested here.
I know I'm interested, man. I'm gonna enter these for sure this week. I really like this format, and I like the builds we've done so far. So I'm on board, man.
Yeah, and like I said, the app on the iOS is really nice. It's really easy to use. So if you haven't checked them out, superdraft.io. Use the promo code Grinders. That way you get that $10. Take advantage of it. We'll be back next Wednesday building some more teams for Superdraft. Hope everyone enjoyed the show. Hope everyone enjoys the website. We have baseball coming up next. I'm sorry. I say this all the time. I feel bad for you guys. You go from like me and Means to Dean and Pepsi. It's terrible. And then Kevin Roth and Cheese doing the premium show Crunch Time at 6:15. So that's up next. Hope everyone enjoyed. We'll see you next week.